Excuse me, I'm next in line. Move. Excuse me, I'm next in line. Watch out. Excuse me, I'm next in line. Said move. Excuse me.
I'm turn it off and turn it back on. You got it? Alright, cool. No, I turn it off and turn it back on. Okay. So we're gonna do something a little different today. The majority of the show is gonna be movies. But before we get into that, congratulations Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, because she announced on Raw that they're having a baby. Which would explain why she wasn't on the card, because I couldn't figure out how she was like the only champion not wrestling. So a lot of people are happy, a lot of people are sad, because now it means, they can't get with Becky Lynch anymore. Sad day. True. Now, they just did Money in the Bank, and this, honestly, this lack of audience in stadium, yeah, exactly. It's really been hurting their pay-per-views. I say out of all their movies, the best one that they've done so far is The Undertaker versus AJ Styles one. That one so far is the best. I was kind of excited for this year's ladder, Money in the Bank match, because I thought it would be interesting to actually have them fight through the building before it turned out that this was another one of their stupid movie stunts. But we're gonna get to that. So first, the whole event started off with Jeff Hardy versus Cesaro. Pretty simple match. I feel like Cesaro must be nearing the end of a contract, because they just keep using him and what status he used to have to put other people over. And in all honesty, he's someone who legitimately at one point in time should have been the WWE champion. So I don't know why they keep wasting him like that, but there's nothing wrong about the match. It's a 3 out of 5. Then they had the quadruple threat tag team championship match, which at least this time had everybody, as a tag team. And I give this match a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was a pretty solid match. I just thought it was an opportunity missed to give the Lucha House Party the win. And it seemed like a lot of it, because, no one understood why they were in the match. Then when you're actually watching the match, a lot of the things were going their direction. And I was really hoping that either they or the Forgotten Sons would be able to, kind of just get their first big shine in this match. And especially Lucha House Party. They've been around too long. There was no reason to take them out of 205 and put them main roster, since they've done absolutely nothing with these guys. Then we had Bobby Lashley fight R-Truth out of nowhere, because for whatever reason they always seem to find a way for MVP to kind of get out of these matches now. That was a waste of our time. If it wasn't for the fact that the MVP, R-Truth back and forth before the match was hilarious, I would have given this an absolute 0, because it was garbage from the beginning. Also, another big miss for me was the Bayley versus Tamina match, because you already knew how it was going to go. Once Sasha Banks came down with Bayley, unless Sasha was going to betray her, and she didn't, but it seemed like a waste of my time. With the Bayley winning the title because Sasha interfered, yada yada yada. If Sasha interfered and Tamina had won, I'd probably feel different. If Sasha interfered to make Bayley lose and start their back and forth, and instead of starting something like that where Sasha messed up, almost cost Bayley the title or something like that, they used Charlotte Flair coming off of NXT to start trying to make the two of them bicker again. Like, such garbage. Just such garbage. It's a waste. It's really a waste of Sasha Banks. I don't know if she's still recovering from an injury or some nonsense, but they need to really let her fight Bayley for that title.
She's cleared now.
I know, but they keep stalling it. They just keep stalling. They don't put her in as much either in ring. Her matches are very short. I think they're trying to be careful with her right now. Then they did Braun Strowman versus Bray Wyatt, and I got to give this a 1 out of 5. This match would have been so much better if A, they did one of those stupid movie things like they had John Cena do, to be honest, or B, if they brought out The Fiend. I was really disappointed when I saw Bray Wyatt come out as the Playhouse weirdo who just makes me even cringier that JoJo sleeps with. Yeah, right? If any of y'all watch Total Divas, remember the first season JoJo, that cute little black girl? Mm. That's his girlfriend. That's just... All right. You get from that match to McIntyre versus Rollins, which was a pretty solid match, and I give that to a 3.5 out of 5. Like, there's nothing really to complain about. It's just kind of like it came out of nowhere. Like, Rollins just came out of like, that should be my title. There wasn't really a built-up rivalry here over the course of the weeks. And I think that's all this match was missing, was that real high-level tension. It was just really two good competitors that believe that they're strong, and they are, and they had a match. But there is one bright side to all of Money in the Bank, and that was Asuka winning Money in the Bank. All the bull crap and the gimmicks, even the whole like CGI version of Stephanie McMahon being put in there, that was really weird. I don't know how Vince has time to cut a scene, but Stephanie doesn't. Right? And the Vince scene was very funny with Daniel Bryan and them. I kind of wish that if they were doing this whole movie thing for the entire thing like they did, that they had more of the guy versus girl interaction like they had at the ending of the match. That would have been more fun if there was a lot more of that intergender chaos, not necessarily fighting each other, but just getting in each other's way. But Asuka winning was probably the highlight of all of Money in the Bank, which we find out the next night that she didn't win the contract, she won the title. Which I think is a bit of a screw job, because she could have also chosen to just take the money, and right now with everybody leaving WWE, she might have wanted the money. just keeping it a buck. And she would have, she could have picked when she wanted the title. Right now, when there's nothing going on, she might be able to hold it for a bit, but eventually she's going to lose it. And it'll be when stuff picks back up. Like, I hope they don't try and screw her over by SummerSlam, you know what I'm saying? She deserves a year run with the title. She's the best female wrestler in the WWE, hands down, at the age of, 40? Easily. And she don't look 40 at all. Right. And then, I think this is the weirdest thing to happen in Money in the Bank of all time, but Otis won Money in the Bank. A guy who can't climb ladders won Money in the Bank. This guy is, probably close to 300 pounds, all of it in his belly, no neck at all, dating one of the hottest girls in WWE, right? Like, and they have the thing fall into his hands.
Look at her butt.
Right.
It's so big.
At least I realized why this had to be a movie when that happened, because there was no way in hell they could have pulled that off in an actual match. Like, I'm sure that took multiple takes to make happen. And he probably dropped it a few times in those takes because, trying to catch stuff with that kind of a belly has to be
his
hard.
arm can't even
yeah,
move.
Just right. So, I think the only thing that was probably worse than trying to record that was watching Braun Strowman try and do the caterpillar a few days later. Oh, that was the most horrid thing I've ever seen in my life. If one thing you can't take away from Otis, that man he moves like a wave, like the fat on him just jelly. But I can't even figure out what kind of a storyline they could build to have him use the Money in the Bank. Like, he's just he's a tag team wrestler, right? Who his main storyline has been a love interest thing that made no sense. They've always gotten screwed out of the title pretty much. I don't really see him being a main eventer at WrestleMania. I don't see him, what is he going to do with it? Is he going to take the money? Who knows? I think it's a good move because there's so much unknown about what could happen, but I also think that it's quite a waste considering some of the other talent in that match. I'm just kind of glad it wasn't Daniel Bryan or AJ Styles who won. I'm kind of tired of seeing them always getting the spotlight. Nothing against them. I think they're talented wrestlers, but there are a lot of people on this roster. Let's see everybody get involved in screen time is all I'm saying.
You think they're going to put them as a tag team, him and Braun Strowman, for a little bit?
No, that's not going to be a thing. Especially with the way that they made it at the end of that match where he, faked trying to get a title opportunity.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Braun Strowman probably want to keep him left that he can watch him.
Nah. Because the thing about it is you have to remember that title can also be used to go to Raw. It can be used for any championship, really. So, whatever opportune moment he seeks, he can take. Hell, he can take it for the Tag Team Championship on some real dumb, but he has the right. But last but not least, this whole entire pay-per-view, I gotta give it like a 2 out of 5. And that's off the strength that solely of Asuka being the new champion after the end of this event. Solely off of that. Everything else is very irrelevant.
Because I was watching it like this.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I honestly, when they were talking about I was getting a little excited when they were talking about the Money in the Bank match, about to get to it after the Rollins match, and then I saw it was a movie, and I was so done, instantaneously done with the whole event. I just sat there to say, all right, I just want to see who wins. Yeah, it was a bad pay-per-view, but again, there's no audience, and I didn't realize how much the audience mattered, but it really does. It really, really does.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to go to our first commercial break. And when we come back, we got the movies to watch and the movies to skip. Oh, that's a skip.
Are you an independent artist? Well, have it played on the #1 independent radio station, LDN Radio.
Girl, I know you don't see us as nothing more than friends. And I swear I ain't plying, shit just started happening. And I can't even lie, I can't get you off my mind. In fact, when you're not around, we're talking on the phone or either texting. I know you feel that if we cross the line, it's gonna get real messy. If we cross the line, it's gonna be a lot of love and sexy. Baby, I promise I won't break your heart. If you let me, I could take good care of you. If you only knew how bad that I want you, how bad that I wish that I could tell you. If you only knew, girl, I'm glad that I found you. Every moment with you's a dream come true. My whole life has changed since you came in. I can't help all these feelings. Maybe one day will change. Until they do, I keep it to myself. If only you knew. I'm tired of pretending, wondering if you feel the same way that I do. Being the one that's gonna hold you down, whatever you're going through. I'ma be patient and wait on you, girl. I'ma be there and give you the shoulder for you to cry on when you need it. Cause I know that one day you're gonna realize and see it as clear as I do. I love you. If you only knew how bad that I want you, how bad that I wish that I could tell you. If you only knew, girl, I'm glad that I found you. Every moment with you's a dream come true. My whole life has changed since you came in. I can't help all these feelings. Maybe one day things will change. Until they do, I keep it to myself. If only you knew. Say, God must have sit down and ate it. 'Cause there ain't nothing more beautiful when I look in your eyes. It's heaven. So there's no one that I'd rather spend my life with than you. See, baby, I ain't like you used to. every moment with you's a dream come true. My whole life has changed since you came in. I can't help all these feelings. Maybe one day things will change.
All right, and we're back. So we were still talking some wrestling in the back, and yeah, AEW taking shots at anybody right now. I'm like, you're still babies, bro. You haven't even figured out storylines yet for all your characters, and the storylines you have, some of them are very weak, very weak. So let's just not. Also, for someone who wants to get on Vince all the time, Jericho, why are you still trying to be the face of the company even though you don't have the title no more? So let's leave WWE alone. They've been doing this a long time. They kind of have an idea. You need to figure out all of your stuff before you come cracking at anybody.
He's still mad, I think.
What's he mad for?
I don't know.
You left. You wanted your own brand, right? Like, you know, you should have kept the list.
Cody should be more pissed than anything.
Exactly.
You know?
Cody should be mad, especially. And I'm mad that Cody came back to do the Dusty Road Classic, the second one, and then left to go and start his new business like right after, like the week after. I'm like, what kind of bull? His brother came the third year before he went to. I'm like, yo, that's just mad rude. They try to honor your father.
I was like pissed because that's my father's thing, and you didn't give us the win. You know, maybe.
They weren't a tag team. Remember the Cody Road Classic for new upcoming NXT wrestlers. So, I'm not even gonna get into all that. They got on my nerves. I don't know if they would even make the move if their father was still alive. To be honest with you. That's where I question them. I'm like, your lack of loyalty to WWE, despite all that your father put into it, and all that they put into you. Because you know damn well Goldust shouldn't have had a bit after a while.
Yeah.
And Cody,
that is true.
They tried stringing him along for the longest. Nobody liked him.
Yeah, Cody
after he stopped working with Randy Orton, nobody liked him.
Yeah, I think Cody got more famous now than he ever did.
He got more famous because he got dropped from WWE, not while in it, because WWE fans they never took to him. They're like, you're not your brother, you're not your father, who are you? And he never had an answer. And every time they tried to make him relevant to the other two of them, he got pissed off. It was just like, little bro, that's on you. You ain't that great. All right, that's why you had to go to a second-rate brand. I'm gonna leave that alone now. But there are
shots fired.
all the shots. But there are some things to watch and some things to skip that have recently come out. I'm going to go through various platforms and stuff. So we're going to start with the skip because the skip list is a little bit shorter from what I watched. The first thing is a movie that hit Netflix called The Half of It. And I feel like this is one of those coming-of-age stories that only kind of became any sort of popular because it had an Asian lead. You know, like what was that other movie that Rhea was really into with the letters to all the boys I ever liked or loved or whatever that was, right? Like that. Right. So this kind of felt like a really shitty version of that. Pretty much. And it's a girl who finds out, discovers, although I think you kind of know from the beginning that she's lesbian in some small town. Like that's literally the whole movie right there. And if you really watch this girl for the first 10 minutes of the movie, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, that made sense. So you're just like, what was this? Why did I waste 2 hours of my life? Skip it. I'm not even, ruining the movie because I've given you no details. And by telling you what I told you, I've ruined the movie. The whole movie's about a girl being like, yeah, I like girls. Okay. And? Really? Whatever. Another thing that was a big disappointment for me was the second season of The Hollow. The Hollow is a animated series on Netflix that is about 3 kids who end up in a weird fantasy world, and the long and short of it is that they realize that they're in a video game along the way, right? I've spoke about the first season before. I thought it was really creative. It was really innovative. The characters, the world building, everything was awesome. The second season, they're back in the game. At the end of season 1, they walk out of the virtual reality machines. and claim their prize as winners. So we get to see who they are as real people, not just the animated characters. But then all of a sudden the season starts off and they're back as the animated characters in the game. There's a reason for it and an explanation, but the rest of the series is most of it is them trying to figure out, why are we here? How do we get out? This and there, but everything that gave the series its original charm is completely lost. Even a lot of the characters we liked before, like the giant and the small person strongman and like Death himself and all these other things. It was just really, all the things that made it awesome were not in this season at all. This season just kind of like, hey, you know these characters, we're making them do something different this time around. And it just didn't work. So skip it. If you liked The Hollow Season 1, don't waste your time with Season 2. A movie I didn't have much hope for, so it didn't really hit me as I wasted my time, but I watched it anyway, and I did it to save you. All Day and Night. And it's the story of a guy who ends up in jail realizing that it's not his fault he ended up in jail, but it is. I think that was the point of it. I don't know. There's no clear cut, like, this is exactly how this goes. So essentially you have this guy who is living his life and he seems like he's kind of a criminal, but not all the way there. And they explain how, like, he grew up. They explain, like, how he got involved with anything gang related. But by the end of it, he's in jail with his father, talking about, like, the cycle and the system and all that. I get it. Like, I get it. But, like, this movie had no legit, like, beginning, middle, and end. It didn't really have a big climax or a big reveal or even a big realization. It just kind of was like, yeah, being black is hard. I lived that life. I don't need a movie about that. And guess what? I didn't end up in jail. So yeah, so that I mean, if you're someone who thinks that Black Lightning is the coolest superhero on CW, you can watch this movie. That's what this means. Okay? Yeah, Charles knows exactly what I mean by that. Then I watched something on Vudu called Huntress Rune of the Dead. Now, let me explain this to you real quick. This app, right, the Vudu streaming app, is legitimately where you go to watch all of the most low-budget movies ever, or parody movies, and occasionally some really good sci-fi and action movies will end up there. Like some classic action movies, some good, like you never expected it. Remember a few years back we were talking about that movie Guardians, which you saw there was like a bear flying through the air or some nonsense, and it turned out to be like they were talking about, oh, this is the Russian version of Avengers, right? That So I finally saw that on Vudu. So things like that end up on Vudu. So I'm going there knowing that I'm looking for straight-to-DVD movies. And this movie was exceptionally bad for a straight-to-DVD movie. So skip Huntress Rune of the Dead. Alright? Also, Guardians had an amazing trailer. Alright? So you can skip that. If you never saw it, you didn't miss anything. I finally just came across it. You can skip that. It really isn't as cool to find out that the one animal a guy can turn into is a bear. Yeah, and then I will say a nice touch to give him machine guns by the end of it, but yeah, no. Like one of the guys' only power is to kind of throw pebbles. Like not even like he doesn't get boulders. For whatever reason, he can manipulate rocks and stones, and he only ends up throwing like rocks that are about this big because that's what they had the budget for. I will say, though, for a low-budget movie, it is some of the cleanest and crisp CGI animation I have ever seen. Probably better than some of even the Netflix animated series animation. So I give them that much. But that's about it. Skip it. Another movie on Netflix, Cabin Fever, is the story of a bunch of white people who are running away from a flesh-eating virus and along the way end up getting hunted by a dog dying of said virus, and contracting the virus of themselves. So it turned into one of those survival horror movies. And it just, I mean, it wasn't even enjoyable. It was just really sad. Like, really sad. There's like a point where someone's trying to kill their lover, and they, in the entire place, right? They have a shovel, they have a screwdriver, and they have whatever to make a fire, like a fake flamethrower. Now instead of getting the screwdriver and just like punching it through the head like The Walking Dead, gets the shovel, right? And starts trying to like slowly chop off her neck, and then decides that it's way too painful for him, not even her, but for him, so he decides to light her on fire as his mercy killing. That is kind of how the whole movie goes. Just a whole bunch of dumb stuff where you're just like, really? This is... No. But yeah, so Cabin Fever, skip it. One animated movie, which I watched it on Amazon, but it's on multiple streaming platforms. You'll just more than likely have to pay for it unless you use something I cannot promote. Was Death and Rise of Superman. And there's a reason why I in particular watched this, because DC Animation dropped a new movie. And as we know, DC Animation is the animated version, or like the animated version of the DC Universe things that none of us can figure out why DC can't make a good movie just copying these scripts. When it comes to movies, DC Animation, Marvel live action, and their opposites are here, right? Well, maybe more like this, because DC live action is garbage, and Marvels are just meh. But this movie was just, I didn't realize how much I didn't like it until I rewatched it. And in all honesty, you don't need to watch it to make sense of this next movie, except to understand why Superman is so pissed off. But, I mean, just the death of all people should be enough to piss off the man who's supposed to protect us all, right? So you don't really need it. Skip it. But the biggest disappointment of all the things that I watched was easily John Henry. Terry Crews is the, real life version of a old American folklore as this ridiculously strong big black man who tries to take himself out of the gangster lifestyle that he's surrounded by. Typical black power movie these days. Somehow Ludacris ends up in this with like a gold plate on his face. They never exactly explain why. You're only left to assume that when a gun goes off in Terry Crews' childhood, it somehow skims the entire face of Ludacris. And the angle of which the gun was when the gun goes off, I mean, I'm thinking he shot somebody in the heart, in the gut. We see gold plate. Why is it a gold plate? Why is it not a face mask? What?
It's ludicrous.
It is ludicrous. You're right. It is not the actor. I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? This movie was just so bad. Out of nowhere, the girl can speak English, which and no one questions it, right? No one goes, wait a second, what? This entire time? Huh?
She pulled a Kobe Keystone.
My other thing, too, was kind of just like, wait a second. You had the nerve to question why your older father could speak Spanish, but why this immigrant who's like literally been in the country for all of 3 days can speak English? It didn't make sense that no one even, he didn't even give a funny look like, huh? There's no, out of all things in the movie, this bothers me the most. Like, when the little girl could start speaking English in Wolverine, you're just like, you could have saved half this movie. Like, Wolverine wouldn't have died if you just spoke. So people, all movies aside, if you can clearly speak English and are in danger in America, do so. Don't be afraid. Explain yourself in English, please. Maybe they would stop making movies this bad if you guys did this in real life where this no longer seemed plausible. All right? Thank you. But yeah, this was just such a really corny movie. Even the ending of it was just like so predictable. Like, oh, he utilized all of his henchmen so poorly they turned their backs on him. Like, come on. Come on. But yeah, like, I don't know. Just skip it. Just skip it. We're going to go to our next commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you what you should take the time to watch. All right? So, Charles, if you could.
Baby, I never thought you'd never ever leave. Now you're gone so far from me. Baby, please come back to me. Baby, come back to me. Baby, I never thought you'd never ever leave. Now you're gone so far from me. Baby, please come back to me. Baby, come back to me. I seen you the other day with that sweet look in your eyes at the cafe, drinking coffee. Some feelings came over me now. Baby, I never thought you'd never ever leave. Now you're gone so far from me. Baby, please come back to me. Baby, I never thought you'd never ever leave. Now you're gone so far from me. Baby, please come back to me. Baby, come back to me. I'm ready to love you. No one else above you. I'm ready to give you my love. I'll show you the stars above. Baby, I never thought you'd never ever leave. Now you're gone so far from me. Baby, please come back to me. Baby, I never thought you'd never ever leave. Now you're gone so far from me. Baby, please come back. Baby, I never thought you'd never ever leave. Now you're gone so far from me. Baby, please come back to me. Baby, I never thought you'd never ever leave. Now you're gone so far from me. Baby, please come back to me.
So I'm gonna get to this list because there are some gems on here, and then there are some things that just let you know how silly I am. So the first one is a Netflix series from one of my new favorite comics, Veer Das, who is an Indian comedian who does stand up in both his country and here in the States, and dual languages. So Hamsuk is the story of an up and coming comedian who needs to find his kind of like zone before he goes on stage. Now, his predecessor who was teaching him used to love to eat a very specific kind of food, right? And it had to be hot. If it wasn't hot, he couldn't get in the zone to tell his jokes and make people laugh. Well, for Hamsuk, it was killing people. So the whole show turned into him at sometimes accidentally killing people and then performing on stage after trying to figure out how to clean up the murder, and his rise to success as he has to continually kill people to give great performances so he wins a comedic game show contest like Last Comic Standing, essentially, but the Indian version. It's really funny because it's really awkward. It's a good jab at some of the I guess stereotypes that people have of Indian people, including Indian stereotypes of themselves. But I just thought it was really creative and it was different. It felt like, an Indian Santa Clarita Diet, in a sense. I absolutely enjoyed this series. It was really funny, and I think for those of you who kind of like a more highbrow humor, or just enjoy the literal like physical comedy that comes about in a lot of this, you guys can definitely enjoy this. Now, for those of you who are on the lower brow of comedy, that I also like to jump into, if you go on Hulu, a lot of the Adult Swim series that were popular in the last 10 years recently got posted up, especially for whatever reason, stuff that came out 2013, 2014. So one of those series, for those of you who did watch and want to rewatch, or those of you who've never seen, is Neon Joe. And it is the story of this random guy who sounds like he could be country or Cajun or Lord knows, but this random white guy who goes around hunting werewolves, and somehow along the way stumbles upon a town that has an evil alien organization that originally came here to give us bed and breakfasts, but now just wants to go home at any cost necessary. It sounds so ridiculous, but it's a really good laugh. Tons of funny jokes. I mean, the whole series starts off with like Paul Rudd arriving at a bed and breakfast, getting attacked by a werewolf, and that being what calls Neon Joe to town. Like, you know, it's such a ridiculous premise. And I mean, honestly, it's Paul Rudd. Although he's eventually become Ant-Man, y'all don't even know him by name. You didn't know who he was until I said Ant-Man, did you? Exactly. So that is a really funny show for those of us who like lowbrow humor. Jerry Seinfeld also released a stand-up 23 hours on Netflix. It's typical Jerry Seinfeld. You can't go wrong with it. If you like Seinfeld, not necessarily the show, I'm talking about the comedian. If you like his stuff, it's good as gold. If you're not much for it, his kind of comedy, I would say give it a shot. One thing about Seinfeld is that as he's gotten older, the few stand-ups that he's done, they're very much relatable, right? It doesn't matter what part of the branch you are. If you've been in a relationship, if you've been married, if you've been lost a job, started a new job, had a kid late in life, like all of the comedy is just relative. It's not necessarily, I can't just call it white humor. It's just general humor. So, this is something that I think anybody can enjoy, but especially if you're a Seinfeld, fan, this is right up your alley because it's the kind of stand-up you enjoyed from him in the first place, just a bit more seasoned, I thought it was pretty funny. Then the big animated release that I watched on Amazon, but you can find on multiple platforms, is Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. Essentially, this is kind of like the animated Justice League's endgame. I understand all the hype. I personally wouldn't call it DC's best animated movie, but a lot of people are very excited about it, that have seen it, that were watching trailers. This has a lot of buzz, a lot of good buzz, and this movie isn't bad at all. My only thing is, the way the movie ends feels like something that someone should have thought of long before it happened, right? Like, I don't want to get all into it, but when you have one big bad and another big bad, why not have the two big bads fight each other? Huh? Your job at that point would be to save everyone in between. But as long as they're fighting, no one's coming after you. Makes sense, right? It took them a while to get to that point, but that's the only thing. Like, there was essentially what the point of this movie is that the Justice League tries to take on Apocalypse, loses, and is seeking redemption. Sounds pretty much like an Avengers storyline, right? It's just that there was never a need for them to lose in the first place. Just nobody had the guts to do what they needed to do. I still say give it a watch because it is entertaining. The action is dope. It's just when such a simple conclusion can be made, I personally have to just be like, really, guys? That was your big ending? All right. Now, something else that dropped to season 2 on Netflix was Scissor 7. And I was speaking about this a little while back. It's a Chinese series about a guy who, works at a hair salon by day, but is an assassin by night. And turns out he's like one of the top assassins in the entire world. This show loses absolutely no charm in season 2. The action even gets way more intense and better. You find out more about the character and his past, and he does as well. And you get introduced to a couple of different new characters that only help to increase how dope the story is. I think that this series is amazing, and I can't wait for part 3 to come out. I think you should definitely give it a try. I will say that season 2 right now, the only flaw is that its only dub at the moment is in Japanese. So I personally can't watch it in its original Chinese dialogue. I have to listen to it in Japanese. I'm more accustomed to Japanese. But the first season is in English, so that will be an awkward transition for you if you don't watch anime like myself. Then Working Moms dropped season 4. I won't say it's as funny as the last season, but it's still a solid series. It hasn't really lost any of its major charms. It's just that it's a bit more predictable in storyline this year. Nothing bad. Still very funny. If you're not sure how this show is, the comedy is pretty much like a ABC sitcom. Yeah, not NBC, ABC. And there is a major difference in that. Now, as of those random things on Vudu that are worth watching, and believe me, other than the old action flicks, they are few and far between. Like, I think I was watching Kickboxer the other night, and I was like, oh yeah, I like this movie back in the day. But there's a movie called Fire City: End of Days. Again, low budget B movie, but it feels like a side story out of Hellboy. The character designs were very unique. And not just unique, but very well done. Like it looked more like an actual monster than it did a costume. These guys easily could all be on one of those like competitions for creative design things. The storyline itself was pretty cool. There's a bunch of demons trying to figure out why the people they feed off of, they feed off of negative energy. Why these people no longer are emitting negative energy, and what are they going to do in the meantime as they're starving. It's only takes place in one real location throughout most of the film, which is a tenant building. But it really was quite interesting. A lot of different character relationships were kind of cool. Some very awkward sex scenes where the monsters transform between their human forms and demons that were visually entertaining because you just like the transformation aspect of it was really cool. I honestly can say I was truly surprised by how cool this movie was. It really felt like a good 1980s sci-fi film. So I recommend it to anybody who's just kind of into that horror or into a classic or just something that, you don't know what to watch and you want to see something different. This is it. Go on Vudu and watch Fire City: End of Days. Surprised me. On Netflix, they released a movie that came out but so long ago, but Arctic Dogs, which is a story about a young Arctic fox who wants to be a big wolf mail carrier. Very corny kid story that actually ends up having quite a good storyline built into it, where they are trying to stop a guy who wants to start global warming on a high level, melt the polar ice caps. It got complicated near the end of it, and it was just huh? Really? But it was fun. It was cute. It was charming. I think it's a great kids movie for you and the family to enjoy. For the adults, there is an animated series for you called Solar Opposites, which is on Hulu, and it is the story of aliens who are forced off their destroyed planet and end up on Earth trying to figure out how to fit into our society and still retain their alien culture, essentially. It's really funny. It's really awkward. It's definitely something that could have been on Animation Domination on Fox. In fact, it kind of has a very similar feel to some of those old Adult Swim shows. So this is just, if you're a Rick and Morty fan, this is another one to watch. And I think their creators worked on this project as well. That was the side project that they did during season 4 of Rick and Morty. Really good show. Also on Hulu, you have Oh, Jerome, No. The story of a black guy who works in tech and is very much in touch with his feelings, having trouble navigating the world of dating. It's It's a very awkward show, and it truly befits being on the FX network when it does air live. But I think this is something that is an awkward humor everyone can enjoy. So I would give this a watch as well. They also threw back to 2013, Hot Wives of Orlando, the perfect parody to the Real Housewives of anything. The perfect parody. I don't care what anybody says. This show right here was amazing because of how accurate it was. And I hope you watch this show to realize how stupid you are for watching the Housewives shows. All right. The Kimmy Schmidt came out with a special. What do they call those books where you can go back and forth between the chapters and you're bouncing from one story to the next? Like if you can go to page 89 for this ending or whatever, one of those. They did one of those with the Kimmy Schmidt story of her wedding, and it's the Kimmy versus the Reverend. This was actually really fun. This was I would give this a 5 out of 5 because this is one of the few times I've done this, and especially on Netflix, where you want to see every possible ending because each ending has a different cutscene of their wedding day. It is hilarious along the entire way and truly a good way to cap off or extend the Kimmy Schmidt storyline from where we left off at the end of the series that was on Netflix. So really cool. The biggest thing for me this week, which you can watch on Amazon and multiple platforms, was Scoob, the reanimated take on the origins of Scooby and Shaggy. The best part of about this movie was that it was seriously all about Scooby and Shaggy, right? Fred, Velma, Daphne, all irrelevant. Fun fact, now Velma's Spanish, which explains why she's thick, and also why no one in Middle America ever gave her a second look. But this movie was just awesome. The animation was cool. The storyline was cool. They even fight like an actual monster, which is true Scooby movie fashion. When the monster is real, it has to be a movie. Shaggy goes into the gates of hell, man. They got deep on this. And talk about pulling out of the anime hat trick, the power of friendship saves everyone. Mm-hmm. I loved this movie. This is great. I think if you're someone who's young, you're going to love it. If you're someone who's old, you're going to love it. This right here might be the best family film of the year. And we're only halfway through the year. And during COVID, we need something like this. So Scoob, watch Scoob, definitely. Jumping back to Netflix, we got Summertime, which is an Italian story of summer on a beach with a bunch of people in their lives and how they all kind of figure out who's in love, who's not in love, what are they going to do at the end of summer, how can we all stay friends despite all the drama we've been causing. Normally, not my thing, but it actually turns really into a really good story about people. And maybe it's because I'm nosy and I watch stuff like Black Ink Crew, but a good story about people will always capture my attention. So I say if you're into that drama aspect, go for that. Netflix also has Road Trip Beer Pong, which is not as good of a series as far as quality, but I mean, who doesn't love a good teen movie when you're bored on a Saturday afternoon? This is just a hilarious movie about some guys who are trying to hunt down the lead character's old love interest, even though he now has a girlfriend, and still win a beer pong tournament because it's college. I love this sort of stuff. I grew up on it, American Pie and all that stuff. If you like American Pie, you'll love this. Dead to Me also released on Netflix, which is the story of two women who've befriended each other at the loss of their relationships. One because somebody died and one because, well, they just broke up. But it turns from just that into a couple of different murder mysteries. And the development of a friendship over the most ridiculous of scenarios. I would tell anyone who has ever loved a show like Weeds or Pushing Daisies or Santa Clarita Diet to watch this, and you'll enjoy it. On Amazon, we have Suicide Squad: Road to Hell, which is one of the DC animated movies that introduced Constantine and stuff like that to the DC animated universe. Give it a watch. Learn a little bit about the Suicide Squad and all these extraness that become the supernatural world of DC. And last but not least, we have Jimmy O Yang released a stand-up on Amazon. I thought that was really, really funny. So yeah, so give that a listen. It's definitely, I love someone who can actually bring out their race into their comedy and have it be good. Not all about it, but just good.
It was
So
funny.
it was great. It was a really good stand-up. Oh, I forgot. Constantine had his own thing on the CW app that I wanted to watch too. So Constantine, City of Demons. It's a good watch if you're into that sort of thing. Now before we go, we're going to do our fans of the week real quick. So Charles, you have those ready?
Sir.
All right, cool. So we got just enough time. So I want to give a shout out to Lena, who won this week, and I've known her since when I was 11. So what's up? Jordan Lane, who's won this several times beforehand, consistent follower and fan. My boy Tommy Spacey GX, doing his thing out of Maryland. Then Just K28, who you've seen win this. She's been way more frequent the last few months, so shout out to her as well. On the Facebook side, though, we have quite a number of new faces, so a lot more new followers being active, so thank you all. But a special shout out to Unica Shy, Miguel Angel, and Patricia Romero, who are brand new. And then a familiar face in Dustin Strube. Now, before we go, I picked out two very specific memes. One of them because we passed Goku Day during this little break that we had for Mother's Day. So, shout out to my boy Goku, who is so dope. He has an entire day. So screw all you haters. There are a lot of you too. But the first one is of Goku, right?
Yes.
And it's essentially if you had your option, would you between training with Goku or going on a date with your dream girl? I mean, it's a no contest, right? So what technique are you gonna have Goku teach you first? And frankly, anyone who doesn't say Ultra Instinct, you're an idiot. It's not a transformation; it's a technique. So he can teach you it technically. And the other one is because, all right, during COVID, no one's really dating, right? No one's actually really going outside. A couple people are doing cyber dates. There's been a big popular thing of the pizza date where people meet up to like grab a slice and go on a walk, which is pretty cool, very simple. But more people are just having conversations online. And one thing that's really hard, and I don't think women get it, is when a guy asks you a question and all you say is something really simple, basic, one word. And I'm not even saying you're intentionally trying to like blow him off, because in some cases you're not, but you feel like, let's say, just not answering fully or giving something to go off of. And my boy Zoro over there is struggling like half of us dudes when we trying to have a conversation and it's just dry as hell. So, look, guys, this one's for you before we leave. If you see on her page, I'm looking for someone who can hold a conversation, don't message her. Don't waste your time. She's looking for you because she doesn't know how to hold one herself. And on that note, we'll catch you guys next time. I'm your host, Will D.